is my pleasure, and I mean pleasure, to be here before you tonight. This is my home church. I mean, this has been a long time coming. I hate to say that, but look, a few years back, these last 8 years have absolutely been a ride for me. I mean, that's an understatement. Look, I went and I told this story a few times about 8 years ago, and then I quit, okay? And then last year, I started waking up in the middle of the night, and this is what I was thinking about. So obviously, I'm not done. Yes, here I am. Look, we had a running joke at my grandparents' house. Anytime, y'all know I'm pretty flashy. I dress up when I come to church a lot of days. See what I'm saying? Look, I wear a suit, I wear a tie. My grandma would joke, "Sonny, I thought you was going to get up there and preach today wearing that suit." I said, "Grandma, if they give me a microphone, I can do it." Well, last week they ordained me and 7 other people, and this week they had the audacity to give me a microphone. So here I am. Look, I never imagined myself being in a position to come up here and talk before hundreds of people. Look, if you would have told me I'd be doing this 10 years ago, I would have laughed in your face. And there's people in here that knew me 10 years ago. Would we all laugh? I got some buddies in here. Yeah, there's a nod. Amen. Look, I never planned on doing this. But I'll be the first to tell you that our plans do not always match up what God has planned for us. And His plan is sovereign. You may be here tonight and you may be hurting, you may be broken, but I'm here to tell you that you have come to the right place. You may feel alone, but the church itself is a refuge for the broken. And the name Emmanuel means God with us. So therefore, we are never alone. God is omnipresent. Look, I keep a bookmark in my Bible, and you can't see this picture right here, and that's fine. But what it is a picture of 2 kids, and they're riding a carousel, and they're on the same horse. And you say, what does that have to do with anything we're talking about? Well, a carousel, you know what it does. Around here we call it a merry-go-round, but it goes up and down, and it goes around, right? While spinning. So these 2 kids are on the same ride while it keeps on spinning. Look, God is with us through our own ups and downs. He did not promise that this life would be painless, but He didn't say it wouldn't be joyless either. He promises to be with us through our own peaks and valleys, through our own ups and downs. There will be good times, and look, there will be difficult times. In Ecclesiastes 3, it says there's a time for everything and a season for every activity under heaven. If you skip down to verse 7, this is what it says. It says there's a time to tear and a time to mend, a time to be silent and a time to speak. I've kept my story silent for far too long. The time to speak is now. Pray with me. Dear God, I thank you again for the opportunity to come before another outstanding group of people. God, I pray tonight that you will use me however you see fit. I pray that ears, eyes, and God, even hearts will be open tonight. God, you know this isn't an easy story for me to tell, but it's something that I have to tell. You put it on my heart, and I'm not doing it justice if I don't do what you have me do. So I pray that you be with each one in this room tonight. I pray you bless them, and I pray that something just touches their hearts. And it's in Christ's name we pray. Amen. So, we'll go back to where it all started. Look, this story starts in 2008. I was a junior at the University of Mobile. I had just finished up my first semester of nursing school, and I was playing baseball at the time. I was into my 3rd year. We were getting ready to start our season. And a buddy of mine calls me up, and he says, "Hey, man, I'm going to be getting married, and I'd like you to be in the wedding." And I said, that's fine, good, yeah. When do you get married? He said, March 15th. I'm thinking, this is right in the middle of baseball season. There's no way I'm going to get to go to this wedding. Like, you go to school to play baseball, that's your job. You're supposed to be there, you do what you got to do, and then you go home. So what I did is I whipped out the schedule, and I started looking at it, and I looked, and I'm talking out of 13 or 14 Saturdays. This Saturday that he's getting married was the only Saturday that we did not have a conference game. So I said, look, man, maybe there's ever a chance that I'm going to get to go. I said, this could be it. Never heard of it happening before, but shoot, I'll give it a shot. Be honest with you, I was kind of scared. So I tiptoed into Coach's office one afternoon, and I said, Coach, he whipped around his chair. I said, look, I got a good friend of mine that's getting married. And I said, and I'd like to be in the wedding. It's on March 15th. And he said, of all the things he could have said, he didn't say yes, he didn't say no. He just turned and looked at me and said, I'm going to have to pray about that. And so he did. I just eased on back out of the room. I told my buddy what he said. He kept hounding me. Man, I need to know. You have to get fitted. You got to do this. You got to do that. So I asked Coach again. And when I asked him this next time, he said, "Are you really that good of friends? I mean, really?" And I got to thinking about it. And I was thinking in my head. I wasn't saying it because I was kind of scared. But for instance, we were 5 years old. We grew up together, played ball together, teammates, spent the night together as seniors, our last day, so we could ride to school together. And I may or may not have took a dance class last semester so I could keep boys away from his fiance. But if you know me, I did like to dance, so I kind of wanted to be in that class anyway. It was just kind of a 2-for-1 deal. But I didn't say any of that. But I said, yes, we are that good of friends, and I feel like it's something I need to do. And he said, okay. So the plan was, originally, we had a doubleheader that day. And the plan was I was a second baseman. I didn't sit out. I played over 200 games for Coach Jacobs. And I played every day. I wasn't a pitcher. I couldn't throw one day and then take 3 days off and run. And so I was counted on to be there. So the plan was I wasn't going to play second that day. I was going to DH. That way I get a couple of bats and he could just pull me and slide somebody in my place. And then I could go take my pictures. And that Friday before the wedding, we put a good whooping on this team. We beat them like 11-2. So I had a feeling he was in a good mood. And we're going to leave, and we're walking up the steps at the bleachers there, and I kind of tapped him on his bag. And I said, "Coach, so they're expecting me tomorrow. What time should I tell them to expect me? They're going to wait and take pictures when I get there." I mean, because they were hanging out all day, and I was going to just come late. And he turned around and said, "Look, just don't even show up tomorrow. Don't come. Go, have fun." I said, "You sure? I don't have to come do anything." "Don't come. We'll see you on Monday. Have fun." So that's all I needed. I went. I got to spend the day with him. Got to hang out with all my buddies for the entire day, and got to see him marry his best friend. And it was fun. I mean, we had a lot of fun. But I was worried to death that they were going to get beat one of those games. But my buddy calls me after that. I get to reception. He said, "We swept them." Hangs up on me. And so it was time to let loose now. Look, and then when they got back from the honeymoon, about a week or so later, he calls me. He's like, "Look, I'm going to be coming home from work tomorrow. I want to stop in and watch you play since your coach was nice enough to let you come to the game." And I said, "Okay." Look, this morning playing, we had a doubleheader. So I'm out there, I'm playing second base. And if you know how University of Mobile's field sits, it sits kind of like in a gully. And there's a driveway kind of on this side, so you can see anybody who drives up if you know their vehicle. So I'm looking, the first game goes by, nothing. I see anybody show up. I said, "Well, I guess he ain't going to show up." And about the 4th or 5th inning of this second game, I see his truck pull up. And he starts slowly walking down. I see him sit in front of my dad on the right side of those bleachers right there. And I was coming up like first or second that inning. We were tied, locked in a 3-3 tie. And we were playing a team called Belhaven out of Mississippi. And golly, they always pitched me tough. I mean, I felt like I hadn't seen a fastball in weeks. And finally, I got in there. The first pitch I see, hit it, knew it was gone, dropped the bat, started trotting. Somebody from there, opposite team's dugout, said, "Well, I guess you got your fastball." I remember coming around third base, shaking Coach's hand, and I look up. I get to home plate, and I hug my teammates. And I look up, my buddy sitting in front of my dad. He stands up, claps, smiles, turns around and leaves. I said, "Well, I was hoping to get to talk to you after that game, but I guess not." Look, I played in hundreds of games, and I don't tell you that story because, I remember a lot of them. You remember a lot of things. We've got ball teams in here, soccer players, cheerleaders, everything. You remember a lot of games, and we've had parents in here that play forever. You remember a lot of games and a lot of things about a lot of different days. I don't remember that day because of the home run. That ended up being a game-winning home run. We won that game 4-3. Nobody scored after that home run. I don't remember that day because of the home run or because of any of that. But when he stood up and clapped that day, that was the last time I ever saw him alive on this earth. That was it. I got a clap and a smile. I didn't get a high five. I didn't get a hug. I didn't get a see you later. I got a clap and a smile. He was killed about 2 months later in a car wreck coming home from work with his brother-in-law. His name was Justin Betzel. And if you know anything about having good friends, you learn that over time, your good friends are just as good as family. We've got teenagers over here. These people sitting next to you guys, these guys you share the dugout with, those guys will be in your corner your whole life. You make friends on a ball field that you can't make anywhere else. And I begin to think back on these times and these memories that we had together, and that one in particular. Like, What if, in that situation, when he sat down, I had struck out looking and had to put my head down and make that long, slow walk back to the dugout? I wonder if he got up and left. I wonder if the home run was just, he'd seen enough, like how could it get any better? So he took off. I wonder would he have stayed? But fortunate for us, that's not a question we need answered, because it didn't happen like that. But I have wondered it. Look, I remember being at his funeral a couple weeks after that, and I was sitting down on the right side of this church. I had my hands in my pocket, and I was devastated. I had my head sunk down, wouldn't look up, wouldn't make eye contact with anybody, and then music started playing. And all of a sudden, out of the corner of my eye, I see 4 people stand up. His mom, his dad, his sister, and his wife. And they stood up to this song, and they raised their hands to God. They were thankful for the time that they had with him. And here I am. They lost way more than I lost. And I'm feeling sorry for myself. They lost a husband, a brother, a son. And for them, that was their only son. So that was the end of a name. You fathers that have sons, you know what I'm talking about. A name means something. Am I right? A few weeks after that, I guess it probably wasn't that far, I tell you, but our senior class decided to put on a memorial for him, where we come and talk, and they asked me to come and speak at this memorial and say a few words about my friend. And look, when you're in college, kids, when you get to college, one of the first classes you're going to take is public speaking. Am I right? Okay? I never envisioned in my life that the first speech I give outside of college walls would be a eulogy. But it was. And then the next one was a testimony. And then the one after that became a sermon. But I never imagined. Look, I don't remember anything I said on that stage that day. I don't. I mean, I was just numb. There was a time in my life I was just numb. But when I got down off that stage and the crowd started clearing out, somebody grabbed me by the hand. And it was Justin's father-in-law, Mr. Gary West. And he grabs me up, and this is what he says to me. He said, "He'd want you there, Jared. He'd want you in heaven with him." That's what he said to me. He didn't say anything else. He didn't say, "Hey, how you doing?" And I didn't know him that well. It was kind of an awkward handshake, to be honest with you. This guy looking at you, wants you in heaven, man. He would want you there with him. You kind of wouldn't let go of my hand. But the awkwardness, I think, is what made it stick in my mind. What was happening was God was calling out to me. And as most people do, when tragedies happen and bad things happen, you just want to put your head down and get back to the grind. You want to go back to work. You want to do the things that make you not think about it. And I was taking a summer class at the time, and I was trying to get back in my workout routine, to my hitting and everything else. But I tried to study for this class and this test, and I couldn't see the words in focus. And I'm a nurse, so it's all pictures of human bodies, and I saw Justin's face on everybody in the book. I couldn't do it. I couldn't study. I had to go as a grown man, a 21-year-old man, to my teacher's office and tell her, "Look, I don't know what you want to do. I can drop this class. You can fail me or you can extend me, but I cannot study this. I miss my friend." Lucky for me, she extended me. But the funny thing about this is that these words in this book that were so foggy to me that I couldn't read, the only book I could read was the Bible. The only thing I could see in focus. As crazy as that is. A few nights later, and I was already having trouble sleeping as it was just from everything that happened, I had a dream. And I had a dream that I was back in that empty auditorium after talking at that memorial. And Mr. West had me by the hand, saying those same words. "He wants you there, Jared. He wants you in heaven with him." It said when I looked around, it was empty. There was nobody in the auditorium but me and him. And believe you me, I woke up scared to death. I woke up sweating, about to hyperventilate. I felt like my chest was going to explode. I was scared. But little did I know that being scared was a step in the right direction. Proverbs 1:7 says, "The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and discipline." And look, when Vincent van Gogh was once asked about his famous paintings, his masterpieces, he said, "I dream my painting, then I paint my dream." See, I knew what I had to do. God was wanting me to do something. He was giving me a blank canvas. Here's your shot. I'm ready to wipe it clean if you're ready to do it. So on my bedroom floor that night, scared, tired, absolutely broken. I didn't find any rest. I found no comfort. But I found hope because a Savior found me. I can remember a story. I began to go through all these memories, and I remember a story. Justin and I were sitting at my mom's house. It was like 10:30 at night. It was a Saturday night or Friday night. And we were sitting down on the couches, and we heard this just loud banging outside. And he popped up. Now, he's a country boy. He popped up. Like, man, we got to go check that out and see what that was. And I said, no, we don't. The doors is locked. We can hang out right here. He said, man, your mom's back there. She's sleeping. I said, I know. I want her to stay that way. He said, no, man, it could be somebody out there. We need to go check, make sure everything's okay. Just the hero. Always riding in to save somebody. So, of course, I let him talk me into opening that back door. He opens the door and he walks on out there, walks around the house a couple times, and me, your boy, stood there like this. Holding on to the door frame. And then he comes back in and he says, oh, it's nothing, just no big deal. Something just knocked over your mom's trash cans. I said, good, yeah. And the point I'm trying to make here is that he was ready. You know, if there would have been somebody out there that night that wanted to rob us, wanted to put a gun in our face, he was prepared that night to meet his maker if need be. And I wasn't. I was still holding on to things in this world. And that situation was a door frame. But then I began to ask that infamous question like a lot of you have asked in the course of your life. Why? Am I right? Why do bad things happen to good people? Why not a rapist? Why not a murderer? Why not somebody who has nothing to offer this world? Now, MGM students that are in here, his jersey still hangs in your school, number 17 football jersey somewhere. But look, that jersey doesn't do it justice. He was far more than just a football player. He was an outfielder. He was most handsome. He was a National Honor Society member. He was the first ever lead in the school play that was put on in your new auditorium. Also a 2-time lip sync champion with your boy. He was my friend, my sidekick, my brother from another mother. So why him? Somebody who could have made a difference and done some good in this world. Find my answer in Isaiah 57:1. It says, the righteous perish, and no one ponders in his heart that devout men are taken away to be spared from evil. He was spared from this world. Now, that was 8 years ago. Can we not all agree that this world is a lot scarier now than it was 8 years ago? A world where you have to send your kids to school and we have to worry about radical terrorism. Or if you go see a movie on opening night, if somebody in the front row doesn't have a gun in their jacket. It's a scary place to be. And that being said, that ought to strike up some kind of emotion with everybody in this room. And what I mean by that is, whether you're a Christian or a non-Christian, it should strike up some kind of feeling. And I'll tell you why. Look, if you're not a Christian, and you just agree with me that this world's a scary place to be, and this is harsh, and I hate to be like this, but I'm not up here to sugarcoat it. But this world is the best it's ever going to get for you. If you don't know Jesus Christ. This is it. You peaked. If you don't know Jesus Christ, this is as best it's ever going to get for you. This sick world. But now, if you do know Him, that should light a fire underneath us to tell more people about Him. Not let one person go to waste. Not a coworker, not a brother, not a sister, not a person you eat breakfast with, whoever. It should light a fire under us. It should stir up some feelings from everybody in this room. Now, after this happened, I had a lot of feelings stirring up inside me. And one of those feelings was guilt. Anybody ever felt guilty? The reason that we feel that guilt is because you and I, everybody in this room, was made in the image of something better. In the image of God. Something bigger than every one of us. See, the night Justin was killed, I was at a bowling alley. I'd been drinking all night long. Time came to take up the final tab. Could have stopped drinking. Nah, we ordered another pitcher, and we drank all of it. And then we got in our cars and we drove home. And I should have known better. I had an aunt killed by a drunk driver, and my grandpa was hit by people who were high and was injured. I had enough evidence in my life where I should have known better. I deserved to die that night. But God doesn't always give you what you think you deserve. Sometimes you get a second chance. But I'll tell you this, though, not everybody gets a second chance. And some people get more than two, without a doubt. But God's plan is sovereign. The night my best friend got killed, I was drinking and driving, and I'm the one that made it home. That's a decision I have to live with now. When I got that phone call about 2:30 in the morning, I cried till the sun came up. About 6 o'clock, I was actually sobered up enough to drive to their house, and there was already a ton of people there. When his parents opened the door to greet me, the first thing out of their mouth was, Jared, he was so proud of you. Not hello, not how you been. He was so proud of you. What was he proud of? Because I could hit a ball? He ought to have been ashamed of me. God knows I was. I was destroying my life by trying to find pleasure in evil things. And the word that comes to mind is selfish. Absolutely selfish. Look, I got behind the wheel of that car without any regard for my family, my friends, how it would affect them, and probably countless other people that I passed going home that night. I could have went home to my mother's 15 minutes away, but no, I went 20 more minutes to my dad's house and stayed on the road even longer. It's a terrible idea. Selfish. No regard for others. Some of you have made that selfish decision this week, maybe even this weekend. You may sit there and say that, oh, Jerry, it's been a hard time for me lately. Things have been tough lately, so I've been drinking a lot. Martin Luther King said, darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Proverbs 24:10 takes that a step further, and listen to what it says. It says, if you falter in times of trouble, how small is your strength? Look, you cannot give in during difficult times. If you turn to those things during the hard times in your life, you will wind up just like that bottle you're drinking out of. You'll be empty. There is a fight going on. Understand this. There's a fight going on every second of every day of our lives. For your life and for my life. There's a battle. Don't be empty. I had no idea at this point how weak and truly empty I was. And I'll tell you this, look, I was coming off one of the best years of my life, statistically. Earlier that month, I had been named GCAC Player of the Year. Now, I never thought I was the best player on any of these teams, but for some reason in 2008, they treated me like I was. I won every award I could win that year. A few months later, my name was in Baseball American magazine. Look, all these things that I had worked for, all the practices, all the running, all the workouts, all these things were starting to happen. But to be honest with you, those plaques, they got dust on them. Those frames, they'll break one day. What good is it for man to gain the whole world and then forfeit his very soul? Now, don't get me wrong. There's nothing wrong with winning awards and accolades. They're great things and they make your families proud and it shows that you worked hard and that you were good enough to be rewarded something. Don't get me wrong. But be careful and leery of the things that feed your ego but cannot feed your soul. I was absolutely empty. I would go home even after all these things from the outside looking in and think, here's a dude who's got it together. Able to do nursing school and play ball, do it all at the same time, and be successful on both ends. Here's a guy who's got it together. No. I'd go home and I'd sit in my bed, and the silence of that bedroom was deafening. The quiet had never seemed so loud in my entire life. Does anybody know what an echo is? I think we've got that definition. I hope he's able to put it up there for us. Look, the definition of echo is the persistence of sound after the source has stopped. And if you look it up in the dictionary, some common examples of places you would hear one is from the bottom of a well or from the walls of an enclosed room. Look, I felt like I was in the bottom of a well, and I felt like when I sat in that bed, them walls were going to close in around me. But my friend's life had an echo. I remembered who he chose to live his life for. And that echo became a legacy. There's a book called Have a Little Faith written by Mitch Albom, and it's about two pastors coming from two different walks of life. And it says in there, this is what it says about legacies. It says legacies are built one memory at a time. Look, those memories changed my life. They had an impact on my life. And God started to reveal so much to me because of them. Look, when they hung those jerseys, that jersey of Justin's that's hung at Mary Montgomery, they also gave one to his mother and they gave one to his wife. I had the privilege of being on the field for that, and I got to unveil one of those jerseys. And I began to think about that number, 17. And now up to that point in my college career, I had worn number 6. I wore it these first 3 years of college. I looked at that number, 17, and what are those two numbers in that number? 1 and 7. What's the difference in those numbers? 6. Look, he made a difference in my life. And now I get to stand up here and have the privilege of making a difference for him. And that's not all. Look, his wife started to send me text messages with Bible verses that were out of his Bible that he had highlighted. And this one in particular has always held a special place to me. It's Psalm 16:8. This is what it says. It says, I have set the Lord always before me, because he is at my right hand. I will not be shaken. You say, Jerry, why is that significant? It's significant because of this. Look, whatever they hit on the front right side of this vehicle. Justin was in the passenger seat of that car. It would have been in his right hand. But he highlighted that verse long before that accident. So God was at his right hand before this happened. He was there during that accident. And after the accident, he ushered those two young men home. And after I started reading and digging, I was like, all right, God, you've got my attention. I told you, I was scared. I was scared to death. I didn't know what to do. So I just got down on my hands and knees, and I was like, God, if you're there, just show me something. Show me. I was going into work that night. I was working as a nursing assistant at the hospital while I was in nursing school. And I said, just show me something. Give me something. Give me something I can use. And I was going in to check this fellow's blood sugar. And I get done, check his blood sugar, and I'm walking out the door, and I put my hand on the door handle. He says, wait, stop, wait a second. He said, I don't know why, but I got to tell you a story. So I asked, and I got it. This is what he says to me. He said, look, I've got 16 heart stents. He said, but I'm not going to die in this hospital bed. He said, God's going to heal me from this, and I'll get out of here. He said, but I want to tell you a story about my brother. He said, look, a few years ago, my brother was eaten up with cancer. He was given just a few months to live. The cancer was everywhere. And he kept telling his doctor, he said, doctor, I'm not going to die from this. My God is going to heal me from this cancer. And that doctor said, look, I'm telling you what the tests show, but if your God will heal you, I'll build a church tomorrow. And when it came time for this man's PET scan to come up again, he said the night before he couldn't sleep at all. He said he felt like hands were just moving in his chest, moving throughout his body. And they got the results back. The doctor's carrying these results to this patient's bedside. And he opens them at the bedside. He drops the folder. And then he dropped right behind him to his knees. The man's cancer was gone. And that doctor built that church. And on the road sign, he told me, it says, we reach out to atheists. Took you a second. I'm proud of y'all, though, Baptists. All right. Look, I'm in the medical field. I've got coworkers here, and there's probably we got a lot of them in here. But look, it would do us good to learn this right here. Look, science is only going to go so far, and then comes God. But all we do, doctors, nurses, techs, whatever, all we do is provide care and we provide treatment. God does every bit of the healing, whether it be physical, spiritual, emotional. He does it all. It would help us out to just go on and realize that right now. Look, when I started speaking, I started going to tell this story like I told you. God would show me something different every time I went. So I was just rolling. The first time I went and spoke was at Coach and Miss Joy's church. And I had this little kid come up to me after I got done speaking. He could have been 4 or 5 years old. He grabs my shirt. He says, sorry about your friend. I'm glad you're doing okay. And isn't it funny how little kids can display things that us adults have trouble doing? Like compassion and honesty. Kids will tell you what they think. Adults will hide it. You know, does this look good on me? Yeah, it looks real good. Kids will tell you. Kids will tell you. Luke 18:17 says, I tell you the truth, anyone who will not receive the kingdom of God like a little child shall never enter it. Now look, after this little kid walks off, this lady's being led up to me, holding on to somebody's arm, and somebody had to physically put her hand in my hand. She was blind. She said, you touched my heart. The story touched my heart. See, she couldn't see me. She could feel God. She was open to what he was doing. Isaiah 42:16. It says, I will lead the blind by ways they have not known. Along unfamiliar paths, I will guide them. I will turn their darkness into light before them and make rough places smooth. These are the things I will do. I will not forsake them. And then I went on to another church. And I met this young lady who had been struggling with grief for 2 years. See, her high school sweetheart had been killed in a car accident just like my friend had been. And the sting of his death have been driving her life. She hadn't been able to get past it. And look, at this point in my life, I had a lot of things driving my life. Whether it be the game, or alcohol, school, whatever. Look, anything we put before God is an idol, and I had a lot of them. I don't have time to sit here and name them all. And look, I really thought it'd be hard to overcome these things, but I tell you what God does. God can give us strength in our weaknesses. Listen to 2 Corinthians 12:9. It says, "But he said to me, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness." That is amazing. That whenever we're at our lowest point, he's still strong. When you're hurt, he's healing. When you're broken, he's putting the pieces back together. So with God, there's really no time of weakness. And you may be sitting here tonight, and I guarantee you there's some people in here that are just sitting here saying they're skeptics. And I was there. I know. Look, maybe saying he doesn't understand. There's no way Jesus understands me. Look, my husband cheated on me. He betrayed me. My wife's running around on me. She betrayed me. Look, Judas betrayed Jesus for 30 pieces of silver. He knows betrayal. You may sit there and say, I'm an addict. I can't get off this website. I can't quit doing meth. He don't know the temptation that I feel. Look, Jesus fasted for 40 days, and it was taken up by the master of all temptation. He knows temptation. And I can't sit here and say, God, Jesus, my friend died. You don't understand how I feel. If you look it up, when Lazarus died, and Jesus sees him, and they show Jesus where he was, it says Jesus wept. Because he cried. Now we all know what happened to Lazarus. We know that he overcame his death. Jesus raised him from the dead. And when death came for Jesus, he conquered it. Do we need to go there? That tomb's empty. It's nothing more than a hole in the side of a mountain. And like all these things that we talk about, they created holes in our lives. Whether it be drugs, disease, divorce, or death, he's big enough to fill every one of them. He is enough for you, and my God, he's enough for me. He's enough for all of us. Look, after all this happened, I had someone say to me, I would probably straighten up too if all that happened to me. I had that quotation. Somebody said that to me. Look, I want to paint a picture. Look, I stood on a stage like this one with my best friend as he got married. And before he walked down the aisle, he asked me to write a note on his hand to his wife. And I'll keep what it said between them. But I stood on stage with my best friend as he got married. And 2.5 months later, we had to carry him out of there. It's not something you want to do. It shouldn't take some man being eaten up with cancer and be miraculously healed, or somebody being killed in a car wreck before you do what you know is right with God. I am absolutely ashamed of myself that that's what it took to get me up here. I'm ashamed. I am. But nonetheless, I'm here, and I'm begging you not to make the same mistakes that I did. I still miss him. I do. I miss him all the time. I see things and hear people talk that remind me of him, and I miss him every day. Psalm 126:5 says, "Those who sow in tears will reap with songs of joy." Eventually, I had to quit asking God why it happened or wondering if I was just being punished. Look, I wasn't doing what I was supposed to do. I'm honest about that. I told you that. I was selfish. The fact of the matter is, though, is that these were 2 Christian young men on fire for God just heading home from work. I wasn't being punished. They were being rewarded. Look here in Revelation 22:12. It says, "Behold, I am coming soon. My reward is with me, and I will give to everyone according to what he has done." So let me ask you, what are you doing? What are you doing with the things that God has given you? And don't sit there and say, "I ain't giving nothing." But he's had. He's given every one of us something. We've been given so much. And you may not see these things as a big deal. I get that. I've been just like a lot of you. I sat in the back row of this church for 20 years and thought that God owed me something because I showed my face. Well, let me make something clear. God doesn't owe us anything. He sent his son to die for us. And through all our faults, he offers us an eternity with him. And guess what? It's been paid for. Paid in full. And I used to feel like, God's just overlooked me. Some of you felt like God's overlooked you. But the truth is, he's given us all so many gifts. Honesty, patience, love, gifts anybody can have. Look, some of you feel overlooked because you can't dunk a basketball or throw a baseball 95 miles an hour or play the piano. Look, I'll tell you, those things are just a gift of talent. And talent is a common gift, and it gets wasted every day. Romans 11:29 says, "For God's gifts and His call are irrevocable." That means these gifts that God has given you to do these things, nobody can take them away from you unless God ordains it. So why let them go to waste? Why sit on them? Why are we not doing something with them? One gift that God gave to all of us, because I'm looking at you and I'm seeing you right now, is life. You can waste your talents, but please, I'm begging you, do not waste your lives. Pastor Levi Lusko of Fresh Life Church said it is possible to have a saved soul and a wasted life. Now think about that. You'd be sitting back there, I've been saved since 1962 and I never moved out of this chair. How about no? What are we doing with our gifts? Look, don't look back 20 years from now and wonder if you did everything you were supposed to do or even could have done. You can do things right now that you won't be able to do a second after you're gone. People you can talk to, texts you can send out. 1 second after you're gone, there's things you can't do anymore. Coach used to tell us all the time that he was preparing us for life on a ball field. Good teammates make good employees. Good teammates be good fathers. Good teammates and be good husbands. That was an understatement. Look, I had no idea the type of life that was being prepared for me. But I tell you what I don't believe in. That's coincidence. I don't believe there's no such thing. We don't say it at our house. It's like a cuss word. I have no idea how I got to this point to be up in front of you people. I really don't. And some of you are wondering, you have no idea how you came tonight. But I guarantee you it's for a reason. There's no such thing as coincidence. Tonight you're part of this flock, and God does not want anyone to go astray. Luke 15:4. Listen to what it says here. It says, "Suppose one of you has 100 sheep and loses one of them. Does he not leave the 99 in the open country and go after the lost sheep until he finds it?" Let's read the end of that again. Until he finds it. He never stops longing for you. See, I may not know how I got here, but I know why I'm here. I told you about that night in my bedroom. I'm here because Jesus Christ, the Good Shepherd, never stopped pursuing me. And when I was done running, he was waiting. He was waiting. I'm grateful for a God that never stopped pursuing us, because there were a lot of days I didn't want to be found. I'll be honest. Look, the day we had to carry Justin out of that church, that was one of those days. It was the hardest day of my life, hands down. And then we've got a lot of our friends here that were there that day, and I think they would all agree with me in the fact that he's been helping carry us ever since. Those types of friendships, those types of relationships can transform lives because of the memories that go along with it. Look, I showed you a picture earlier. Our friendship started right here. That was us. We were 5 years old. Why we were both riding the same horse on this carousel, I'll never know. But we weren't. The funny thing about this picture is neither one of us are looking ahead. Neither one of us are looking behind us. We're just looking around. We're taking it all in. We had no idea what was coming. And it's not coincidence, as I told you, that he's sitting on the front and I'm sitting on the back, because he would go before me in life and in death. I will do my best to ride in his stead. I will do my best to follow the trail that he left in front of me and ride in such a way as to point people to our Savior, Jesus Christ, in heaven, because somebody told me a long time ago that he would want me there. Ecclesiastes 4:10-12 says, "If one falls down, his friend can help him up. But pity the man who falls and has no one to help him up. Also, if two lie down together, they will keep warm. But how can one keep warm alone? Though one may be overpowered, two can defend themselves. A cord of 3 strands is not easily broken." I'm thankful for friendship as I stand before you today. And I'm thankful for prayer. I'm thankful for a coach who was a praying man. The Bible tells us to pray without ceasing. Pray about everything. Even if one day your second baseman comes to you and says, "Can I miss this 2 games to go be in a wet?" Because you can pray about that. That prayer changed my life. If I had not went to that wedding and I'd been playing ball, I resented him. I resented the game that I love. I would have never played again. But that prayer changed lives. It turned me from a skeptic into a believer, and it changed a coach from a mentor to a friend. And it changed other lives as well. The young lady who I told you about, who had lost her high school sweetheart, chose to pick up the broken pieces and give them back to God. And in October of 2011, I had the pleasure of attending her wedding. And so did some of you in this room. Because I wound up being the one standing beside her. She is my most precious gift. She's my companion. Sometimes we have to cling to these days. When we argue or the bills are too much, we have to remember that a lot of things happen in order so we can be here and have this platform. I'll tell you something else. Look, the last time I ever talked to Justin on the phone was about 2 weeks before he was killed. And we were just shooting the breeze, just talking. And all of a sudden something happens. His wife beat in. And he said, "Oh, Jared, it's Leslie. I got to let you go, man." And he said 3 words to me. And they're not the 3 you're thinking. He didn't say, "I love you." He didn't say, "See you later." That's what he said, and he hung up. He said, "Marriage is work." And then he hung up. That's funny, but that's not coincidence, because I would meet my wife because of him. He was preparing me for her long before he left, by the way he lived his life and the things that he said to me. That blows my mind that that's the last thing he said to me. Look, those are the things that carry me through. Those are the reminders that God has for us. Look, and I don't take our story for granted for a second. I don't take him for granted for a second. But I'm not going to sit up here and pretend it's been easy. It's not easy to talk about this stuff. It's not something I like rehashing up, but it's something that I'm not doing anybody any good if I keep it to myself. It won't help you at all if I'm kept quiet. There are days when I still miss my friend. And I want her. There's some days I want it all. Look, this watch was his watch. His mother and father gave it to me about a year after the accident. And it literally took me about 5 years to put a new battery in this watch. 5 years. You see, his time here had ended. And I just did not feel right starting this watch back up without him. I was clinging to those days that I had with him. After 5 years, I was still mourning. Matthew 5:4 says, "Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted." And look, I have found my comfort. And for those of you who have lost anybody here recently, this is where comfort is found. It's found in 1 Thessalonians 4:16 and 17. This is what it says. It says, "For the Lord himself will come down from heaven with a loud command, with the voice of the archangel and the trumpet call of God, and the dead in Christ will rise first. After that, we who are still alive and are left will be caught up together with them in the clouds to meet the Lord in the air. And so we will be with the Lord forever." Some things stick out to me right there. Caught up together with them, and we. I will see my friend again. I will cherish the memories that we had, but I don't have to cling to them as tight anymore, because I'm going to have more. There's more than this right here. Some of you are holding on to your own baggage tonight. And I'll tell you, it's going to lead you down a road you don't want to go down. Possibly a road to hell. Don't be worried about what the person next to you is thinking, or that you're still young and wait to straighten your life out. Look, he was young. He was ready, but he was young. You don't know. We're not guaranteed another second. I'll tell you something about this life I want you to understand. And you may say, "You're 28 years old. What do you know about life?" I know enough to know that it's hard. This life is precious. It's absolutely precious, but it is just a fraction of the time we have compared to eternity. It's just a piece, guys. But you need to get this piece right. One bad choice can change your life forever. Just one. But because of Jesus Christ, so can one good one. Just as steadily, though, as I told you earlier, that God is pursuing us, something else is too. The enemy is prowling, waiting to pounce. 1 Peter 5:8 and 9 says, "Be self-controlled and alert. Your enemy, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion seeking someone to devour. Resist him, standing firm in the faith, because you know that your brothers throughout the world are undergoing the same kind of suffering. Look, I told you earlier, being a Christian does not guarantee us an easy life. And God does not promise us one either. Suffering is inevitable. Jay and I had lunch on Monday, and he's getting ready to preach a sermon on suffering. And he said himself, it's not a matter of if you're going to suffer, it's a matter of when. It's going to happen. In Christmas 2014, my wife and I shared with close friends and family that we were expecting our first child. And we were excited. The next day, our oldest nephew, Dean, will be diagnosed with leukemia at 9 years old. And I'm a nurse, and I know the statistics in my head that 1 in 5 of these children with childhood cancer will die from it. 1 in 5. And so our hearts sank. And 3 days later, our hearts would break all together when we found out our own baby no longer had a heartbeat. You see, what it did is it stripped the joy out of our holidays. Just like that verse read, the devil was devouring us. He was winning. He distracted us from the true meaning behind the holidays and got us away from our Christian walk. I'll tell you this, if he can distract you, he can devour you. It's not to be taken lightly. It's not a joke. It's not a game. He wants to destroy your life. And that's exactly what he was doing to us. Look, I came home for months, and I listened to Amanda cry herself to sleep. And I could not turn over. I did not have the words to say. Nothing I could have said was going to make her feel better. So I would go to bed hearing that, and then I would go to work the next morning where I took care of crying babies, and then I had to hand them back to their parents. It's just like a constant reminder. And I'm thinking, God, there's that question again. Why? Is this some kind of sick joke? Why would you put me in a place where I hold babies for a living and then give them back to people? When I never got to hold my own before I gave them back. Why? There's that question again. Why? And then I found that verse again. 1 Peter 5, 8, and 9, where it says, he's prowling around like a roaring lion looking for someone to devour. But at the end of that, it said, resist him, standing firm in the faith, because you know that your brothers throughout the world are undergoing the same kind of sufferings. Look, we felt like we were alone in our suffering, but we weren't. I told you at the beginning, is we are never alone. There's people that were going through the same stuff we were going through. That didn't make the pain any less real. And all of a sudden, I was reminded of a high school English lesson, as odd as that is, about similes. Look, that verse says, he's prowling around like a lion, which reminds me that he is not a lion. But I tell you, there is one coming. Revelation 5:5 says, then one of the elders said to me, do not weep. See, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the root of David, has triumphed. See, that's what our God can do. In the last 14 months, I've seen color come back in Dean's face and see him laugh and play again. I've heard my wife laugh and kick her head back in laughter, and I've seen her smile. That's what our God can do. He can take our trash, he can take our trials, he can take our tragedies, and he's going to turn every bit of it into triumph. Guys, we win. He's a God so big that he can give and he can take away, and yet he never leaves. And as we've heard here tonight, he's a God so big that he can make cancer momentary, he makes pain temporary, and with him, death is not the end. So you may look around this room. You can take me and my wife, for example. You may look at us and you can say, God, you may see us suffer. Let me tell you what you won't see. You will not see us quit. You may see us cry, but you're going to see us smile. You may watch us grieve, but we will rejoice because I know that a better day's coming. Because it's promised to us, and it's going to happen. So until that day, I will have hope, and I will rejoice in the beautiful things that we've been given. Look, I'm going to ask our musicians to come on up, and Dan to go to the piano. I got a couple more things I'd like to say, and then I'll ask Jay to pray. As you think back, you think about your own lives, as you dissect them down, as I have with mine, I want to tell you that our lives, every one of them, they're just like puzzles. Look, God is taking pieces away sometimes, and sometimes he's putting new pieces in. Only he can see the big picture. We can't see it yet. But He is working on a masterpiece for your life and for my life. And it's hard to understand when these pieces get taken away. It is. It's truly hard. But you got to understand that He sees the big picture and He knows what is best for you. So I won't sit up here and say, I can't sit up here and say, God, how could you take my friend from me? God, we had plans. We wanted to coach a team together. We wanted to build houses together. We wanted our kids to play together. I can't sit up here and say that. I can't sit up here and say, God, why did you take our child before we ever knew him? We had names picked out. We had plans for that child. I can't sit up here and say that, God. I can't sit here and say, God, this wasn't supposed to happen. This couldn't have been your plan. Look, this was always the plan. He did not guarantee us an easy life. He didn't. But He does promise to be with each and every one of us. And there will come a day when tomorrow starts without each and every one of us. So what then will you do? Ask yourself that question. What will you do when tomorrow doesn't exist? It's a tough question to ask. You sit back and think about it. We get caught up in our lives and working and everything else, but what will you do when there's no more tomorrow? Would your life have an echo? What kind of legacy will you leave? As they sung that song, Finish Well, when you do finish your race and you get the privilege to look on the face of the Maker, the Creator of the entire universe, face to face, will it be like you're back in that batter's box? Will you be called out and have to turn and take the loneliest walk down those steps you've ever taken in your entire existence? Or will He do this? And smile. Say, well done, thy good and faithful servant. You decide. Jake?